Thank you very much. All right, guys. Do you have any questions about the price ceiling problem? Can we erase it? No questions? Very good. All right. So, do we want to review anything else? Everybody comfortable with taxes and subsidies?
Yeah, let's do the subsidies.
Okay. So pick a problem. Which problem would you like to work on?
I'm confused about this construct a budget neutral subsidy.
Very good.
I don't know.
Which part are you confused about?
Pretty much just, I don't know what neutral is. I know
Very good. What does it mean, budget neutral? Budget neutral means not positive, not negative, kind of neutral,
yeah.
right? So for example, you impose a tax and you collect $100 in new tax revenue. Let's suppose, okay? And then you implement a policy that costs $50. A different policy where the government spends $50. So the government just raised 100 and spent 50. Does that leave the budget unchanged? No, it leaves the budget in $50 surplus, right? So that's not budget neutral. It doesn't leave the budget unchanged. On the other hand, if you, for example, collect $20 in new tax revenue, but you implement a new $50 policy, does that leave the budget unchanged? No, it leaves the budget with a $30 deficit, right? That's not budget neutral. So when is a set of policies budget neutral? When one policy generates just as much revenue as the other policy siphons away. That makes sense? That's it. Now why are we calling, or why are we referring to that entire problem a budget neutral? What is it we're doing budget neutrally there? Well, we are imposing two policies. We're imposing a tax in one market, let's say cigarette market, right? And we're imposing a subsidy on another market, let's say baby formula market. Where we tax cigarette market, we are collecting or generating tax revenue. The market that we're subsidizing, we are paying, or the government is paying for the subsidy. So the government has tax revenue on the one side and subsidy expenditure on the other side. When is this set of two policies, tax and subsidy, budget neutral? When do you think it is budget neutral? When do you think it's budget neutral? When is the tax and subsidy budget neutral?
Probably it's
When that tax collects just as much tax revenue as that subsidy costs. Does it make sense? Perfect. So let's do it. So pick a problem and read, please.
I think it's on C.
Now let's do the whole problem.
Oh, okay. Consider a market where demand is dP equals 18 minus Q.
Very good. So we're taxing a market
Yeah.
with cigarettes. Say it again.
It's dP equals 18 minus Q, and then supply is 0.5 Q.
P equals 0.5 Q, right?
Yes, sir.
Very good. So demand is P equals 18 minus Q, correct? And supply is 0.5 Q.
Yeah.
supply, P equals 0.5 Q. Correct?
Yes, sir.
Very good. So this is a cigarette market, let's say, okay? First, let's find equilibrium in this market. Equilibrium quantity and equilibrium price. How do we do that? Set the right-hand sides of supply and demand functions equal to each other, and you get 0.5 Q equals 18 minus Q. From there, 1.5 Q equals 18, and equilibrium quantity is then equal to what?
12.
12. Very good. 18 divided by 1.5, which is 12. Very good. Now, plug quantity, equilibrium quantity 12 into either supply or demand. What do you get? Half of 12 is 6. 18 minus 12 is 6. So we see that equilibrium price is $6. Very good. Let's find consumer, producer, and total surplus in equilibrium. How do we measure consumer surplus?
Top triangle.
Measure area of the top triangle. How tall is it?
12.
12 by 12 divided by 2 is
77.
72.
Or 72.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay, good. 72. The bottom triangle area of the bottom triangle. Guys, why am I being so picky about words? Why am I just not saying that producer surplus is the bottom triangle? Is producer surplus really bottom triangle? Is consumer surplus really top triangle? When you go shopping and you generate consumer surplus, are you going home with triangles in your pockets? No. So what actually is consumer surplus? Let's just keep in mind what it is we're talking about. What is consumer surplus? How is it defined? First of all, we obviously measure it in dollars. What kind of dollars is it?
What you're considering paying for a product.
Okay, so consumer surplus is the difference between how much you would be willing to pay and how much you actually do pay, right? Very good. In other words, it's a measure of just how good a deal you're getting, basically. That makes sense? And of course, when you add that consumer surplus for all the consumers in the market, right? You get the consumer surplus in the market. Very good. Producer surplus. So yes, we measure producer surplus as the area of that bottom triangle. How tall is it? 6 by 12 divided by 2.
But it's not 6.
What is not 6?
Is it 5.5? I mean, it's 5.5, right?
What am I missing?
Is it at 0 or 0.5? Per?
Yeah, it's 0.5, right?
Yeah,
What? Okay, question. What is the equation of supply curve? What is the equation of the supply curve? 0.5 Q? .5Q can be written as 0 plus 0.5 Q, correct? That means this supply curve starts at 0. What is this 0.5?
Slope.
Slope, exactly. That's why it's so relatively flat, right? It's going halfway between 45 and horizontal.
So if it was 0.5 plus Q,
Then it would
Then it would
be
be-
starting at 0.5, and it would be 45-degree line if the slope were 1, right? Very, very important. Very good.
Could you please explain that one more time, please?
Which part?
The producer surplus, the 36?
Oh, absolutely.
I'm clueless.
You're measuring producer surplus as the area of the bottom triangle, right?
6.
So how tall is that bottom triangle?
6.
6 times
12?
12 divided by 2, because it's a triangle.
Thank you.
You are very, very welcome. Okay? I mean, it's your job to ask questions, guys. So very good. So we have consumer surplus 72, producer surplus 36, total surplus of how much? 108. Very good. So we have a total surplus of 108 in equilibrium. So this is your cigarette market with no taxes, no nothing imposed on it, right? Now the government decides that it needs to raise revenue, tax revenue. So the government thinks, where are we going to get the tax revenue? And they think, well, smokers are the easy target. Let's just impose tax on smokers. So the government imposes a tax on cigarette market. And in order to collect tax revenue, how large a tax does the government collect in that particular example?
$3?
$3 tax. Okay, so the government imposes a $3 specific tax, right? That means $3 on each pack of cigarettes. Now, does the government impose that tax on consumers or on producers? Does it specify? Does it say anywhere in that problem whether the tax is imposed on consumers or on producers?
No.
If you can't find it there, it's for a reason. Why doesn't the problem specify whether the tax is going to be collected from consumers or from cigarette companies?
It doesn't matter.
Because it doesn't matter, absolutely. Because either way, you're going to get exactly the same outcome, right? We showed that. So does it really matter whether I impose it on consumers and depress demand by $3, or I impose it on producers and the subsidy, and the supply is shifted up by $3? It doesn't matter. So, for sake of, bless you, for sake of clarity or easiness of working with the picture, let me shift supply up by $3. Okay, so that's the impact of the tax. Tax lifts the supply up by $3. So supply is no longer P equals 0 plus 0.5 Q. Supply is now S prime. What is the new equation of supply curve?
3 plus 10.5.
3 plus 0.5 Q, right? Okay. Let me actually rewrite this a little bit more space consciously. So supply was P equals 0 plus 0.5 Q, and new supply now is P equals 3 plus 0.5 Q. Very good. Now, what do we do now that we impose the tax, or that the government has imposed the tax on the cigarette markets and supply shifted up? We simply redo the problem, right? We find the quantity and the prices that correspond to that tax. So what is the new quantity? I'm calling that quantity Q prime. What is that new market output when tax is imposed? Well, set the right-hand sides equal to each other again. But right-hand sides of what? Well, the demand curve, which remains unchanged, and the new supply, 3 plus half Q. And we have 3 plus 0.5 Q equals 18 minus Q. From there, 1.5 Q equals 15. And Q prime is now how much? 15 divided by 1.5 is
10.
10. So the new quantity is 10. So what happened to quantity in the market when tax was imposed? Quantity decreased. Are you surprised that tax reduces smoking? Why are you not surprised? Why does it make sense that the tax reduces smoking? Because smokers now pay a higher price for cigarettes. How high is the price? Consumers, PC, consumer price. How much is the consumer price smokers now pay for cigarettes?
$8.
Correct. It is $8, which of course comes as a surprise to a lot of people. Because a lot of people would think, when cigarettes cost or are selling for $6 and the government imposes $3 tax, then the price should go up by $3 from 6 to 9. But we see that's not the case here. Because when quantity is 10, plug that quantity into new supply or into demand curve and you get 18 minus 10 is 8. 3 plus half of 10 is 3 plus 5 is 8. So how come that a $3 tax causes the price of cigarettes rise by only $2? Well, because when consumers pay $8 sticker price for cigarettes, the government takes $3 in tax. How much is left to cigarette companies? Only $5. Which is the producer price, correct? The producer price of cigarettes is $5. Very good. So, how does the tax affect consumers and producers? We find consumer surplus and producer surplus prime, meaning after tax. How do we measure consumer surplus? As the area of the top triangle, meaning triangle above the price, below the demand. That's the measure of consumer surplus. Which price? Above which price? Above the price consumers pay, which is 8, right? So it's this top triangle. How tall is this top triangle? 10 times 10 divided by 2 is $50. Producer surplus is the area of the bottom triangle. But it's getting a little bit crowded here. There's just way too much happening. Which triangle should I be looking at? There's a triangle that looks like this. There's a triangle that looks like this. There's a triangle that looks like this. There's 3 triangles at least we see that look like bottom triangles.
6 minus 3?
I know.
Well, first of all, we have to realize we are measuring producer surplus after tax was imposed, correct? What's the quantity in the market after tax was imposed? 10. So we have to look for a triangle that is anchored with one vortex at quantity 10.
Why?
Can you see a triangle?
Yeah.
Well, here's one triangle, right? And here is another triangle. Which of the two should I use as a measure of producer surplus?
From the 3.
Frankly, it doesn't matter because they're identical. So we might as well use, for example, this bottom